and welcome to Good Deeds, Real Estate with a Mission. My name is Diane Davidson. I'm with the Fine Homes Group at Keller Williams, as is Bill Weidecker, business and domestic partner.
Domestic partner? Hardly.
Okay.
Well, I'm not very domesticated.
I didn't say domesticated.
I'm wild.
Yeah, okay. I'm not rude with my phone. I'm going to read a little something from Realtor.com. But Bill, first let's start with something I think that I would call disturbing. We had the opportunity to review a listing agreement from a very large real estate company, international real estate company, and found some terms in there that were definitely not favorable to the seller, and definitely not something that we were shocked to see that they were there.
Well, you're always in, when you list a property for sale, it's a business transaction, and yet the way I look at it is you're really, the seller is your client if you're the listing agent. And what's the definition of client? Well, client is somebody who's under the care and protection of another. And this listing contract, while it was protective, it certainly wasn't protective of the seller in this particular case. And let me elaborate a little bit. If the property were not to sell, the listing agency was protected for, in this case, 6 months, where no matter who bought the property, if they'd walked through during the listing period, that company was entitled to a real estate fee for that entire 6-month period. Now, the standard listing agreement in the state of New Hampshire, it's a standard form that the New Hampshire Realtors provides, that pretty much the rank and file realtors out there use. Is that period of time, that protection period, is waived if it's listed with another agency, so that you don't have this double jeopardy in terms of fees, unless, of course, in this particular case, you have a contract that was written specifically by this very large organization. So it really, I guess the warning that we want to send out to everybody that's watching our podcast is not only just our clients, because our clients we're not worried about.
Mm-hmm.
They're not subject to that. But it's really everybody out there, read the contract if you're going to enter into an agreement with somebody else.
So just to be clear, because there are a lot of companies that when listing is either terminated or it expires, the time runs out.
Yeah.
There's a period of time after that if a layperson, a buyer, would-be buyer was introduced to the property, if that buyer decides to make an offer, then that company gets paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if the the house is listed with another company. So there's the double jeopardy, because they're obligated to pay the next company,
Yeah.
obligated to pay the company that didn't do the job for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you said, that is the antithesis of the standard language that most of us have in our contracts, which is what's recommended by the Realtor Association.
Yeah, I would say the warning there, Diane, is just to look at the very top of the form of the listing contract, and if it does not say standard form from the New Hampshire Association of Realtors, realize then that you are using a form that was created by the company that you might be entering into business with. And I would just say, read the document, in all cases, but really read the document, because why are you not using the standard form?
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be some reasons. The New Hampshire Association of Realtors standard forms are pretty much down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
They're not perfect, but they're pretty fair to everybody. So I would leave it at that. And then the other part, with regard to we've mentioned this before, but with regard to listing contracts, it is an obligation under the Code of Ethics for realtors to disclose how they are going to share their fees with other agencies that might bring a buyer in. And that needs to be disclosed in the listing contract or in some other contract. You just have to be aware. I will give you, every company might do it differently. So I think it's clear that what you have to do is you have to make sure you know how that listing agency is going to share their fee, if at all, with another company. So, for instance, if you're hiring the broker, make sure you know what they're going to compensate the other side, and that it's clearly disclosed to you in the form. Don't allow for it to be blank, and don't allow for it to be something that you think, boy, that seems low. Have a discussion with the listing company.
And whatever it is that they say they're going to, the listing agent says they're going to share as in cooperation with the buyer's agent, that is the minimum that must be published in MLS.
Correct.
Right? So it doesn't, not out of the goodness of their heart will they do that on a case-by-case basis. Whatever they tell the seller they're going to pay is the minimum they need to publish.
That's correct.
So if anybody has any questions about this, because it's a lot, and I think that, if anyone has questions, they should contact, of course, one of the Fine Homes Group team members, and we can explain it privately.
Sure.
I think it's important to know.
Sure.
Okay, I have another question, totally off this subject. And this is, by the way, I'll go with you, whatever the answer is. I don't know if that's good or bad. Would you rather live in Manchester, Nashua, New Hampshire, Greater Manchester, or Rochester, New York?
Well, I think what you're referring to, and I know what you're referring to, is the Realtor.com just came out with their hot housing markets. Is that what you're?
Oh, might be.
And Manchester/Nashua was ranked number 1 with Rochester, New York. So there was a tie.
So you give me the tiebreaker.
I'm going to break the tie.
Okay.
Now you might think, well, what's he going to pick? Such anticipation.
Roll.
So I would ask this question. First of all, which state has an income tax and which state does not? Well, you probably know if you're thinking about New Hampshire or live here. New Hampshire doesn't have an income tax and it doesn't have a sales tax. New York has both. Now, in addition to that, which state which state's closer to the coast? Manchester is closer to the coast than Rochester, New York is, and so I would pick Manchester in that
Okay.
regard. The tallest mountain range, the tallest mountain in the Northeast happens to be in New Hampshire. It's Mount Washington, and the White Mountain Range is about an hour away from us. Not so much with Rochester, New York. And in addition to that, New York State does have New York City, and I love New York City. It's 4 hours from Manchester and 5 hours and 35 minutes from Rochester.
Okay.
Hello.
Convince me.
Hello. And let's face it, Boston is just awesome. It's the cradle of liberty.
All right.
And I believe Manchester is really the place to be.
All right, tie is broken. And I'll just let you know that is September of 2022, the hottest housing markets in search of affordability. Manchester, New Hampshire, Manchester, Nashua, and Rochester, New York tied for the top spot in the hottest housing markets list in September. This is the 10th time that Manchester, Nashua has ranked number 1 in the last year, and the 3rd time for Rochester.
Now that I didn't know.
Manchester, Nashua has been in the top 2 hottest markets since March 2021, holding the top spot a total of 15 times. Rochester held the top spot for the first time in June of 2020 and has been ranked number 1 a total of 6 times. And by the way, if you purchase anything in New York City, you need only ship it to New Hampshire. I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's the package.
There's no that if you buy in New York, you can ship it to New Hampshire, and there's no sales tax.
There you go. Well,
Bingo.
Thanks for breaking the tie, and thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform, or tune into our YouTube channel.